Welcome back. I'm Jana with Purl Together. In this week's video, we're going to work on block 8 of our Berroco Mystery Blanket Knit Along. This block is full of cables and a lot of fun. I love good cable. I just love cables. I love all those Celtic knits with the braids and the cables and the Celtic patterns, all that stuff. This isn't necessarily that, but it's a great beginner cable project because it has some straight up left over right and right over left twists. And then there's just this really simple kind of elegant thing going on in the middle. That's a lot of fun. If you're a newer knitter, I'm going to show you how to interpret the chart and how to do right and left crossed cables. But then also I'm going to show you how to cable without a cable needle and also how to mitigate some tension issues that you might encounter. Okay, a couple more things I want to add. I chose to do my increases a little bit differently than the designer indicates or than Allison did in her instructional video. So go and watch that, and then you can decide which you prefer. I use the left and right leaning lifted increases, where the tutorial that Berroco puts out for Allison Green suggests that you're lifting the bar or the strand between two stitches. It's personal preference. I find that, at least for me, in the way that I knit, the lifted increase is a little bit more flawless, I guess. The lifted bar increase, where you lift the strand between the stitches, that leaves a tiny little hole, at least the way I learned to do it. So you do what works best for you, because there's no knitting police, right? Definitely watch Allison's video and then see what you like the best for your style and tension and the way that you knit. I've put the link to Berroco's tutorial videos down below in the video description. The only other thing I want to note is on the chart, if you're using a chart, the little gray square, there's no stitch there. So in the very first couple of rows, the gray shaded out square means there's no stitch there, because that space is reserved for once you do the increase, then the new stitch will occupy that space. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's get started. Okay, I've done the long tail cast on here using the long tail cast on calculator that I have on my website. You're welcome to go and grab that. I'll put a link down below in the video description. And so I've done that here, and I have my tail here and my working yarn here. So our setup, which is row 1, this will be the wrong side. So we want to make sure to take note of that, because often row 1, 3, 5, and so forth are right side rows, and then the even ones are your wrong side rows, but that is not the case with this pattern. It does tell you that in the pattern. So first we're just going to purl 1, and we're going to work through the knits and purls that are the setup row 1. Okay. So we purl 1, knit 2, then we're going to purl 3, knit 2 4 times. So you're going to repeat what's in the brackets 4 times. So go ahead and work through that, because when we purl on the wrong side, they become knit stitches on the right side, and we're going to have some panels that we will be working those cables with. So just go ahead and work through your setup row with the knits and purls, and then we'll talk about the increase that's going to happen on row 2. Okay, I prefer working from a chart. You can use the written instructions if you like. I find working from a chart a little more straightforward. So I would suggest that if you want to do the chart, you either use Knit Companion, you can use washi tape, blue painter's tape works really well, or a Post-it note. And you just put the Post-it note down and you move it as you go up. Now I like to put my Post-it note above the row I'm working on so that you can see how the stitches will stack from the row below. So you know that this purl column is going to be the same all the way up. And keep in mind that when you're working with a chart, that you will repeat, the chart repeats are what's in between the red lines. So this says work 4 times, the stitches in between these 2 red lines, and then you have this section here in the center, and then you work this section 4 times. And keep in mind also, this is the wrong side row. We just worked row 1 on the wrong side, the setup row. So it goes this way because it's on the wrong side. Then you go up to row 2, set up row 2, and we're going back right to left, just in the same way that we knit. So be sure to read the chart notes here and just be careful with following along. So this right here is the increase that we're going to talk about in a moment. This is a make 1 left. which means it's going to lean to the left. Now, there's several ways to go about this. People debate all the time whether make one right, make one left is a lifted bar increase or it's a lifted increase from the row below. So if we're starting on our setup row 2, we're going to knit 1, purl 2, knit 1, make 1 left. Okay, so let's go ahead and work over to that first make 1 left. Knit 1, purl 2. Now I am using the needles that I think will give me gauge, but I have not done a separate swatch for this. So if I get 10 rows into this and I'm not getting gauge, I am fearless. I will rip it out because I want to get gauge. So I know that that is not a popular opinion, but if I need to change needle sizes, I totally will. So I'm going to do a make 1 left, which for me is going to involve lifting the strand from the row below. Some people prefer to make 1 left, which means going into the front of the bar between the stitches. So that would involve going into the front and then knitting into the back of that to twist it. That's totally valid and it's fine. I don't care for that because it will leave a tiny little hole. I would rather lift the leg of the stitch from the row below. Okay, but if I'm making 1 left, I have the stitch that's on my needle, then I have the stitch from the row below, but I want the leg of the stitch below that. And I'm going to just lift that up. So if you think of generations, and I will link a video below that shows this more slowly and clearly, we have the daughter that is the stitch on the needle, we have the mother, which is the next stitch of the row down, and we have the grandmother. So I want the left leg of the grandmother. I'm going to put that out right on my needle, and I'm going to knit into the back of it. That's my make 1. It doesn't leave a gap, and it's a pretty seamless way to increase a left leaning stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to knit 2 and purl 2, and we're going to work that 4 times. Okay, so I'll have the chance to show you that increase again. So I'm going to knit 1. Now I'm going to do my next increase. So I have the daughter stitch on the needle. The mother is the row below, but I want grandma's left leg. So I'm going to go down, grab grandma's left leg, knit into the back of it. I will, I learned that from Kat Bordy, and it's handy. It's a really good increase. And I'll show you the right leaning increase when we get to the middle part of this row 2. Okay, so we did the increase, and now I'm going to knit 2, purl 2, and I'll show you that one more time before I cruise across to the center, and I'll show you the right leaning increase. So now I'm going to knit 1, and I'm going to go daughter, mother, grandma's left leg. And if you can't see grandma's left leg or you can't get it from the front, you can always go into the center of the stitch from the back, rotate your needle back, and there you have it. So we're going to knit into the back of that, because if you look, the way that I have that on there, the stitch mount is incorrect. So you could either just turn it like that and knit into the front of it, and that works, or you can just simply knit into the back, which is what I usually do. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And now, because I've been talking, I haven't really paid attention to how many times I've done that, but I think it was 3. But I can go back and look, right? I can read my knitting, and I know that I can see that that's an elongated stitch. That's an increase. So I know there's 1 increase, there's 2, then there's 3. So I just have 1 more to do. Okay, again, daughter, mother, grandmother's left leg. Knit into the back. Okay, knit 2, purl 2. Then I'm just going to knit a few across until I'm going to do another increase that is left. Okay, then there's these 2 purl stitches here in the middle. We have a whole bunch of knit stitches here, and then we have 2 stitches that are purl right in the middle, and then another stretch of 9. Because remember, on the back side, on the wrong side of our work, when we did row 1, we had 9 purl stitches, 2 knits, and 9 purl stitches. Well, on the front side, that equates to 9 knits, 2 purls, and 9 knits. And you can read that on your chart right here. You're always going to be able to see the center purl column. So that's going to be kind of a landmark thing for you to keep track of. If you get wonky, if you get off on this purl column, you'll know that something's gone amiss. Okay. So I'm going to knit 7 now and do another increase. All right. And then we want grandma's left leg again, because that's I'm pulling that leg to the left. That's a left leaning increase. Okay, knit 2, and I should be up to my purl column that's in the center of our block, and I am. So yarn forward, purl 2, 2 more knits. Now I'm going to do a right leaning increase. You can see on your pattern how that looks different. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the same grandma leg from the first row. So remember when we looked over here, we have the daughter as the stitch that's just knitted on this row. And then we have the mother and we have the grandmother, which was our cast on row. Okay, so we have our cast on row, then there was row 1, and then row 2 is what we're knitting right now. But we haven't knitted row 2 yet, so we don't have a daughter right here yet. We just have the mother and we have the grandmother. The daughter hasn't been born yet because we haven't knitted it yet. But we still want grandma's leg. We want grandma's right leg this time, not the left leg. So a right leaning increase means we want grandma's right leg. So we're just going to grab that, lift it up on the left-hand needle, and knit right into it. So it's not twisted if it's the right leg. I'll show you that again. So we don't have a daughter yet that's been born. So, but this is still the grandmother and the mother, right? So we're going to go into the right leg, lift it up on the left-hand needle, and knit right into it. So that's our increase stitch. And now we want to knit 7 until we're back to our next purl column on the left side of our chart. I'm using the chart, but you can follow along with the written instructions if you would like. I was talking, not counting, but there's my purl stitches, so I know I'm on track here. Okay, then we're going to knit 2 after the purls. Knit 2, and now we're going to have another right leg, a right increase. Okay, so again, we're going to get grandma's right leg, which was our cast on row. Knit into that, and then carry on. Okay. And again, we're going to repeat that 4 times. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish this row. Again, if you need to have those lifted increases shown to you more clearly, we'll link a video down below in the video description that explains the generations and how to go about that a little bit more slowly. Okay, so we're finished out this row here. And then on row 3, which again is on the wrong side, we're going to just knit the knits and purl the purls, I believe, all the way across. Let me double check my chart. See, that's to me a little more clear to look at the chart than reading the written instructions, but you do what works best for you. But on row 3, it looks to me, well, which is row 3 is really row 1 of the actual pattern, because now we've completed our 2 setup rows. So row 1 of the actual pattern is on the wrong side, and we're just going to knit the knits and purl the purls all the way across. And then we'll get into the cables here on row 2. Okay, now I'm ready to begin row 2, which is on the right side. And I'm going to talk to you about these symbols here for a minute, noting the left stitches are crossing in front of the right stitches. And this is over the course of 4 stitches. So we have 2 stitches that are going to cross over, 2 more. So what that means is that you have 2 stitches. So pretend my fingers are stitches. We have all 4 stitches right here, and these 2 are going to cross over like that. Now the opposite is true here, where we still have 4 stitches, but the right side is crossing over the left, okay, like that. So I'm going to show you how to work these cables just as it's written with, you can use a cable needle or a DPN, and I'll show you that first, especially if you're a newer knitter, and then later on, we'll work through the chart a few times for the whole block, but then later on I'm going to show you how to cable without a cable needle. The other thing that you might be asking, why did we cast on 68 stitches and then have our cast on row and 1 setup row and then hurry up and increase? Why did we do that? Because when you cable, so the designer, let me back up my thought process here for a second. So the designer, we want the blocks to be, 12-ish inches. And so the cast on number of 66 is what's going to give you that dimension, right? But we need to increase because when you cable things, cables, when you cross things over, it tends to tighten up. It sucks in the fabric. So we need to add some stitches to suck in the have extra enough to suck in and cross over without changing the overall dimension of the piece. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to use a DPN for purposes of this demonstration, just because it's a little bigger and maybe a little easier for you to see on camera. So I'm on row 2, which is the right side row, and that's going to become super clear. You certainly mark right side and wrong side if you want to, but it's going to become very, very clear shortly which is which. Okay, so I've knitted the first 3 stitches, knit 1, purl 2. Now I need a crossover left. Have a left cross, a 2 by 2, so meaning 2 stitches crossing over 2 more stitches. So just as the instructions say, you're going to slip 2 stitches onto a cable needle. So slip 2, and I usually just hang on to that right there. Then you're going to knit 2, okay? And that's going to draw those 2 stitches over to the right to be neighbors over here. Then you're going to knit the 2 off of your cable needle, okay? There you go. Okay, so you have your left cross where you have moved these 2 stitches to the right over these 2 stitches, and then you're going to follow that up with a purl. Now, a lot of times what happens is you'll end up with this little gap because you're bringing the yarn forward and then you're purling 2 stitches. Sometimes you'll end up with a little bit of a gap between this knit stitch on the that's coming from the cable and then this purl stitch. Sometimes you'll have a little bit of a hole right there. Right there. So make sure you give that a good little tug. And then the next one too, you might want to give that a little tug also, because it happens. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing again here. We're going to have 4 of those that correspond to these panels. So that was 1, we have 2, 3, 4, and then we have 2 purls, and then we have this big section in the middle that we'll deal with here in a minute. So you can see on your chart how, this is another reason why I like to use charts, because you can see what's going to happen. These purl columns are going to stick together. They're going to be consistent all the way up. These cables are going to, be left twists, and you can see that in the picture of the pattern. Left twists over here and right twists over here that kind of cascade, in a diagonal direction, and that's going to be really pretty. But then you have another column of twists that are building upon themselves in more of a straight line. Okay, so again, we're crossing 2, so we're going to take 2 stitches and slip them off on a cable needle or a DPN and hold them to the back, just as it says in the instructions. And then we're going to knit the next 2, knit the next 2, and then knit the next 2 off of the cable needle or the DPN. The reason I like DPNs for beginner knitters also is because they're just longer, so there's less of a chance that any stitches are going to slip off the cable needle. On the other hand, though, if you use the cable needles that are shaped like a fish hook, like a J, those are pretty good too because, they just hang to the back and that's easy enough. Okay, so again, we're going to bring the yarn to the front. We're going to purl that, give it a little tug so you don't have a gap. And we're going to do the same thing again. Okay, I'm going to carry on across until we get ready to do a left cross. I think I misspoke this whole time and was calling this a left cross when really it's a right. It's a right cross because you're crossing left over right, but it's leaning to the right, and it's diagonally, the stitches leaning to the right are on top. So my mistake. All right, during this whole row, we've had cables that have veered off to the right. So we've crossed things over in front of the other 2 stitches so that the twist leans to the right. So we're going to do just the opposite. We're still going to slip 2 stitches off on the cable needle, but we're going to leave them to the front. We're going to bring them to the front instead of taking them to the back. So that's going to reverse the twist that we have. So then you're going to knit the next 2 stitches off your knitting needle, and I give this a little tug here as well. And this is a little fiddly, but then we're going to knit the 2 off the cable needle into the front. So you can see where that crosses, that's 2 by 2 crossed over the front, and that's going to lean to the left. Okay, then I'm going to knit my 6, or however many that is, till I get to my next purl column. The other reason I like to do a DPN is because I'm less likely to lose it. I stick it behind my ear when I'm not using it, like just then. It's just habit. But then I go looking for it and it's behind my ear. You know, kind of like looking for glasses that are on your face. Same kind of thing. So again, slip 2 stitches to bring them to the front, leave them hanging in the front on your cable needle, knit your next 2 stitches, and I know that DPN's in your way, but you just have to kind of ignore it or hold it down with your thumb. Then knit the next 2 stitches. And I always kind of make sure to scooch these down my needle so that they don't accidentally pop off while I'm working with my cable needle or my DPN. Just little things that I do out of habit that I don't really realize. Okay, then bring your yarn forward, purl your next 2. Yeah, so it's really pretty straightforward if you just exactly follow the cable instructions for the right and left cross. So I'm going to work through some of this, and then after we get some established, then I'll show you how to cable without a cable needle. Okay, you can see what's going on here. Things are looking really good. For each chart repeat that we do, we have one cable sequence that goes all the way from the bottom to the top diagonally. So you can see this was the first chart repeat, 2, 3, and I'm working on the 4th repeat. So you can get an idea of, you can measure this and get an idea of how many you're going to have to do to complete the square. What I want to do now is show you how to cable without a cable needle. I actually timed this. For me, there's not a lot of difference in speed between using a cable needle or not. So it's a good thing to know how to do in case you are somewhere without your cable needle, or you forgot it, or you lost it, or whatever. So normally, if I'm using a cable needle and I'm doing a left cross, I'm going to take these 2 stitches behind. So if I know that, I'm going to bring my needle in front, and I want these to drop back behind. So I'm going to take my right hand needle underneath the 2 stitches that I'm going to eventually bring over across the front. Then, making sure that I'm using my finger to press these 2 stitches in the back and hold them there so they don't ladder down and drop down. Then I'm going to go ahead and take out my left needle and then go right back in to the 2 stitches that are not secure. So what that did is that now I can bring these over across the front, and I'm going to put them right back on the left-hand needle. So I've just changed the positions of these 2 stitches with these 2 stitches. Then I can go ahead and just knit them straight off the needle. I can just knit them because now they're in the order that I want for my cable. Okay, I'll show you that a couple more times. Again, I'm going to bring these 2 forward. Okay, those 2 I'm going to purl. I also like to kind of yank things around and straighten things so we don't have an elongated stitch here, and we can mitigate any gap we have here. Okay, let's do that one. Let's do that a couple more times. So we know we want these, if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, we know we want stitches 3 and 4 to cross over in front of 1 and 2. So we're going to take our right hand needle and go in front, go in underneath these. You got to scooch these off. And you can go ahead and do that if you want, pressing this index finger, pressing those stitches to the back of your right hand needle, and then go right back in and pick those up before they have a chance to ladder down. Pull those stitches 3 and 4 across the front, and then just put them back on your left needle so that you can knit them. So we have stitches 3 and 4, and then we have stitches 1 and 2. Okay, hope that made sense. People think that it's a little bit faster. It's certainly not faster if you drop a stitch or split a stitch or something happens. So if you're uncomfortable, I mean, you could certainly try it. If you're uncomfortable trying it, then just, go ahead and use your cable needle. I'm going to go ahead and do these 2, and then I'll show you how to do it with the left cross. So I'm okay doing this up to probably at 4 by 4. So 4 stitches crossing over 4 more stitches. I've done it a lot, and this is, it works pretty well. I don't think it's a whole lot faster than using a cable needle, but it is a little bit, well, you could argue that it's a little bit less fiddly in that you don't have an extra needle in, flopping around. But it is a little bit risky in case you drop something. So I guess that's the trade-off, right? Okay, so I go in underneath stitches 3 and 4, pressing stitches 1 and 2 to the back of the needle, where I can just go back and pick them up after I release the left needle from the first stitches, and then just go ahead and knit them off. The other thing I will say, if you're using wool, or at least a wool blend, you know, even if you pop off a stitch, see how it holds its shape pretty well? Yarn that's 100% wool will hold its shape a little better than an acrylic blend, meaning it's not going to go bloop and slide down, you know, ladder down, drop down as quickly and become a lost stitch. You know, it's possible, but it is difficult to fix. If you have a stitch that you dropped that ladders down past a previous cable, you can fix it, but it's not, I'd say that's a more advanced skill right now. So if you're, you know, if you're unsure, just go ahead and use your cable needle. It's totally fine. But if you want to try it, now let's get up to where we're going to have a left-hand cross. Okay, I need one more. Okay. So now these two stitches, stitches 1 and 2, need to go in front of stitches 3 and 4. So I'm going to take my right-hand needle and go in underneath. What I want to do is get a hold of stitches 3 and 4 underneath so that I can pop these two off. And I'm going to press them to my working needle with my thumb, and I'm going to get a hold of stitches 3 and 4 and then go back and pick up stitches 1 and 2. So now I can pull those over. For a second I thought I had to split stitch, but I don't. And then I'm going to go ahead and put stitches 3 and 4 back on and knit them in the new order after rearranging. Okay. It is a danger sometimes to split a stitch. The other thing that you want to watch out for is that regarding the split stitches, the other thing you want to be mindful of is having needles that are pointy enough to do this, but maybe not too pointy that they're going to split a stitch right away. And again, that just also depends on your tension and how you knit, etc. Okay, so let's do that again. We want to have these two stitches coming across the front. So we're going to go in behind so that our right-hand working needle comes up underneath and gets a hold of stitches 3 and 4. So you can see that they're going behind, it's going behind there, and I do have a hold of stitches 3 and 4. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my left needle from all 4 of the stitches that are involved in this cable, pressing against with my thumb right here to keep these from sliding down. Then I can just go right back in, grab those loops, and put everything back on so I can just knit them in the new order. And I give that a pretty good little tug because I want this stitch that's coming across the back to be connected to my purl column. So I will give this a good little tug so that I don't have a gap there. And this is sometimes where you get another gap right here behind this cable. So I give this a pretty good tug also. And the second one. And then take my yarn back to the front. Okay, we're going to do that one more time, and then we're going to finish off. Whoops, get a hold of that. Go around, grab those loops, put these back on the left needle. Okay, and it does feel awkward when you're first learning. It is arguably slightly faster if you practice and you get good at it. But it's totally fine to just use your cable needle also, because like I said, if you drop a stitch and you end up having to fish it down or rip back because you can't find it, then certainly that's going to take more time than playing it safe and using your cable needle. So do what works for you. Okay, I will put some related videos down below in the description of this one, where if you find that you have a gap from going from a cable to some purls. If you find that you have a gap here or you end up having holes, I have a video that I'll link below about how to go about fixing that if you want to investigate that. So I'll put a couple of things down below. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about real quick before we close out this video for this week is, let's say you have a mistake and you realize that you've crossed something wrong, or, you know, maybe you did what I almost did and you had a cable go the wrong direction and you need to tink back. So keeping in mind that tinking is just backwards knitting, it's unknitting. So I'm just going to go in underneath that, take that out, go in underneath my purl bump and take that out, And when you get to a cable, remember what you're doing here. You're just going to unknit it, and these two stitches need to come to the front, and you're just going to unknit everything in the exact same way that you did it to start with. So you can go in underneath that, take it out. Okay. Take that out. Now, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and grab your cable needle here, or you can get a removable stitch marker and hang on to those so you don't lose them, and then unknit those two, and then put these back on. Then you can go about fixing whatever is necessary if you had them reversed in the wrong order or whatever. But just remember, when you're taking things out, it's just exactly the opposite. You're just going back opposite what you just did. Okay, I hope you found those tips helpful. And again, there's some other videos down below in the video description that I've linked to you that you might find helpful as you're doing this month's blocks. Happy knitting.